Welcome to the latest episode of the Bailey Pod. Tonight we'll be bringing you our Bailey Pod top performers from Week 8. Also, we'll dive into our quick take of last week's blockbuster game, Hononegah Belvidere North. Tonight, also two Nick 10 hottest coaches will be stopping by to talk to us about their big showdown on Friday night. Yes, Coach Jeff Beck of Belvidere North and Coach Jim Morrow of Harlem. And my guys tonight, Scott Leber's in the house and my main man, Harold Bone. Now, folks, before we get into the show, I usually allow my actual viewers to go grab a snack or beverage of their choice. I'm going to ask you tonight, because it's just going to be an action-packed show. We got a lot percolating. I'm just going to ask you tonight, just go grab your neighborhood because it's going to be that type of show. I won't kid you. I'm not holding you up. This is going to be an action-packed one. Folks, don't touch that dial. Stay put. Hey, let's get ready for the Bailey Pod. Hey, again, folks, welcome to another great edition here on the Bailey Pod. Before I usually dive into the meats and the potatoes of the show, I just want to give, just express my profuse thanks to those that have gone and viewed the Bailey Pod, watched the Bailey Pod, subscribed to the Bailey Pod, and those that have liked it as well. Definitely means a lot to us. Continue to, view and subscribe to the Bailey Pod. Definitely means a lot to us. You keep coming, we'll keep serving. Again, just, profuse thanks to those that have actually gone and followed the Bailey Pod and subscribed. So again, thank you very, very much. Just a couple reminders. Don't forget to go follow, go like the Bailey Pod, click that bell in the bottom right-hand corner so you can be notified for all new content that we'll be dropping throughout the week. We got some new stuff dropping next week, so make sure you click that bell tonight before the end of the show so you can be notified for all new content next week. I'm going to go ahead and bring in one of my main men, one of my contributors, Harold Bone of the Rockton Route School News. He's with me tonight. What's happening, Harold?
Tim, super excited. Two great coaches are going to be on here tonight. We're going to talk about last week's great game, as you mentioned, and unbelievably, we're at the last week of the regular season in high school football in Illinois. Playoffs are right around the corner. The weather has flipped to now fall football weather. What a great day. What a great time to be alive, and what a great day.
Oh, man, you said it, man. Amen, brother. Amen. Beautiful. A beautiful day, beautiful night, beautiful weekend. Again, we saw some really good stuff last week. But, Harold, I'm going to pivot here for a second before we get into the bulk of the show. There was a big volleyball game, I believe, last night, girls' game. Correct me if I'm wrong. I have here Guilford and Hononegah. I just want to say just a quick congrats to not the Hononegah, but the Guilford program, for winning the Nick 10 championship. I believe they have one more game to go, but I think this game here had championship aspirations. So again, Harold, I know you were at this game or you covered this game. Can you speak a little bit about this game last night?
Yeah, all the credit in the world goes to Guilford. They came into the Hononegah gymnasium. They knew what they had to do. They had to win if they were going to win the conference championship. And they came in and they took 2 out of 3 sets from Hononegah. And they have one more game against Harlem on later tonight. And if they win that, they win the conference championship. And to go to someone else's home gym or home court and to defeat them. And look, both teams, they're very evenly matched. Hononegah is now 15-2 with the win. Guilford is now 16-1 in conference, 22-9 overall. Two tremendous volleyball programs. But for Guilford to go in there and get that victory, just kudos and the hats off to all those girls. Just a tremendous match. It was tight all the way through. Hononegah got a win in the second game of the match. But other than that, it was tight all the way through. Couple points either way. Could have went Hononegah's way. It didn't. The Vikings were able to take home that victory. And if you just look at the numbers, Thursday night's game, not a walkover by any means, but they got a good opportunity to take home the hardware for Guilford in volleyball. So congratulations to them. And it's been a little bit since someone's knocked off Hononegah in volleyball. So it's not like it's into kind of a big stepping stone for everybody in the conference, not only Guilford, but all the other teams in the conference, because Hononegah has somewhat dominated the conference in the last few years here.
Yeah, they have. I was gonna just piggyback you. I mean, Hononegah's always had a really sound program, for the last 20 plus years. Guilford's had a good program too. Guilford's no slouch. Again, congratulations to both teams for really making it this far. And we wish those girls best of luck as they continue to play the game of volleyball. I know a lot of those girls are club sport athletes. So again, a lot of those girls will be getting ready for club right after high school. But again, big congrats to the Guilford Vikings, the Lady Vikings over there at Guilford on their big victory over Hononegah last night.
Yeah, and I want to mention, if you want to see Guilford, you can go home to their high school on Tuesday night. They're playing host to a game on Tuesday night. If you want to check that out, and that begins the playoffs for both Hononegah and all the other Hononegah, Guilford, and the rest of the teams in the Nic 10. Playoffs start for them, and we'll talk about high school football playoffs here in just a little bit. But yeah. Just an exciting time of the season right now. I know a couple of the fall sports have ended, but we're getting into that time of year where it's postseason and it's a one and done. You got to win to move on.
Yeah, Harold, we got to move on, man. We got to pivot. We got to get back to some football here. But again, congratulations, Lady Vikings. Harold. Yeah, our Bailey Pod take. Harold, you know where we're going with this one, man. I'm going to go ahead and lead this one off, and I'll throw it over to you here in just a second. I won't be long, but yeah, Hononegah North, Belvidere North last week. What a game, what a showdown. I think we kind of alluded to it on the show last week that we said, the team that can actually win in the trenches is probably going to walk away. And I think, goes without saying, I think Belvidere was that team that really won in the trenches on both sides of the ball the other night. I'm going to start with Hononegah. Again, what they were able to do, I think that was probably their best game all year. And just looking at what they were able to do offensively was really sound. I thought, Shockley came out, established himself early, got the offense moving, got the chains moving, picking up first downs. In my estimation, I thought in the first quarter, I thought Hononegah won the first quarter, in my estimation offensively, and just looking back and saw what they did in the second quarter. They go into halftime, they're knotted up at halftime, and they come back out on offense in the second half. And I just didn't think they had enough in the passing game to really compete with the Belvidere North. I'm not saying that they didn't compete, but to really beat a Belvidere North, I think they needed a strong passing game. That's something I didn't see Friday night. I thought the run game was solid, even though Shockley was their leading rusher. I don't think Banker had even close to 80 yards rushing. I know the young man I just alluded to, Shockley, he was their leading rusher. Again, just looking at Hononegah's offense, week in and week out, I would always say, where's that running back? Where's that back that can pop 40, 50? They just don't have it this year. And I think that was one thing that hurt them offensively against Belvidere North last week. They just didn't have enough firepower offensively. Shockley did what he could. The other young man, the receiver, help me out here.
Big 88.
Yeah, Big 88. Big 88. He was on my list here. He did a phenomenal job of going up and, catching the 50-50 balls and, catching some slants. But, again, they just needed a little bit more firepower on offense to allow them to actually, they were in the game the entire time, but to come out with a W, I think they needed a little bit more something offensively. You saw them at the end of the game. They got the ball back, 3 minutes left on the clock. And their offensive line just folded. I thought their offensive line did a good job in the first half. They came out second half a little lethargic. Belvidere North was starting to bring a little bit more pressure. And then you saw at the end of the game, that offensive line just crumbled, and didn't really give them an opportunity. Didn't really give Shockley an opportunity to set up and make the pass that he was trying to make downfield to try to find a receiver. Defensively, what Hononegah did, I think they did a decent job, but, too many big plays, like as we alluded to last week. Can they slow Booker down? Can they limit the big plays? And I don't think they really did that. I think Booker had 2 big runs. He only had 6 carries, I believe. But again, he had 2 big runs over 40, 50 yards. But the other runs that he did have, those other 4 runs, he picked up 15, 20. He averaged over close to about 8.2, 8.5 a carry against Hononegah. And again, Hononegah's defense, just looking back and watching some film as I have since last Friday, a lot of missed tackles. Guys weren't coming up, wrapping correctly. bouncing off guys and just, you got to give credit to, Belvidere North's line. They did a phenomenal job of blocking, moving bodies back. Their receivers, Belvidere North did a phenomenal job of stalk blocking those corners of Hononegah, but Hononegah just came up short. Belvidere North just came to play. They never gave up to continue to play. They got down once, they came back, tied the ball game. And then what they were able to do, again, at the end of the game with 3 minutes left on the clock, that defense just buckling down, man. And just that will to want to win. You saw it with Belvidere North. And again, kudos to Belvidere North. Coach Beck did a phenomenal job of getting that offense to actually respond when they needed to respond. And Coach Fagan did a phenomenal job of dialing up a good defensive, good defensive calls at the end of the game to stop that Hononegah offense from actually gaining anything there in the fourth quarter. So that's
it's Coach Zimmerman was on the podcast with us last week. He talked about the fact that his team had confidence and he felt like they were going to play their best game. And that's exactly what we saw last Sunday night from Hononegah. I think in that game, I think it took Belvidere North a little bit to get going in that game because I don't know that they've played that level of competition in quite a while. So I think it took them just a little while to get used to maybe the pace, maybe the aggressiveness. And then you saw the big players for North make plays. You saw Booker go outside a couple times. He got some great blocking from Alexander. He got some monster, and when I say monster blocks from Eric Rowan. I was on the sideline close enough. I saw 4 pancake blocks. 2 times he knocked Hononegah defenders off their feet onto the ground, which allowed him to go for a large gain. I mean, just great job by Belvidere North answering the call. Every time Hononegah came at North answered it. In that fourth quarter, it was just a great high school football game. North ended up winning that game for what I feel like is they knew how to execute when they needed to execute. Late in that fourth quarter, defensively, I think their coaches did some nice stunts late in that football game, which confused the Hononegah offensive line. They put some pressure on Shockley. They took away a bunker, like you said. I think one of the things that they did is they were okay with Shockley running the football as much as he did, but they weren't going to let the running back get all those yards. And really credit goes to Rowan. I think he had a great game. He only was credited with 6 tackles in the game. And Roman just, you can see why he's probably going to be defensive MVP again, probably play at the Division I level. I mean, just phenomenal job by him in that defense. Just a great Friday night game up there in Hononegah. And look, North has another big game tonight if they want the conference championship all alone, right?
Yeah, another big one. And again, again, Hononegah didn't play a bad game. I think that may have been their best game all year, Harold. I know you've seen Hononegah play a little bit more than I have this year because you followed the program for Rockton Roscoe News. But the gentleman that I just illuminated earlier, Caleb Parker. That's the gentleman that I was trying to dial his name up. But Caleb Parker, he came up big for Hononegah, and they just needed somebody to really compliment him. I mean, he caught good passes, on the slant routes. He caught some deep passes. He was their leading receiver, great target. He just couldn't. The offensive line of Hononegah, if they would have just given Shockley just a little bit more time, I think we may be saying something a little different here. I'm not saying Hononegah would have won the game, but they would have actually picked up some yards and utilized that clock more efficiently than they did. Because again, they turned the ball over. I mean, fourth down, they had the punt. They punted the ball out of the end zone, and then Belvidere North just picked up some yards and just pretty much just ran the clock out. But again, kudos to Belvidere North's defense, man. I mean, they really came to play last Friday night. And again, they had good play from all 11 guys on defense. I mean, I saw all 11 hats all night just flowing to the football, and that's what great defenses do. I'm pretty sure the coaching staff was very impressed with how the defense responded because, again, that saying, defense wins championships. And, as we saw last Friday night, who was last on the field to actually make those big stops from Hononegah from actually scoring and even sending the game in the overtime because, they only lost by 3. So again, you got to give credit where credit is due, and that defense of Hononegah They played really stingy all night, but they played a little bit more stingier, so to speak, in that fourth quarter in that last drive.
Yeah, and they did a great job of compressing the momentum that Hononegah had going into that fourth quarter, because they had some nice momentum rolling over from the third to the fourth quarter. That defense made a couple of nice plays. They kept them out of the scoring zone, and they were Blue Thunder went down, scored the go-ahead touchdown, and then their defense made the play at the end, as we talked about. And the nice thing I think that I noticed in that game is it seemed like Belvidere North in that game, they got some other guys in there. So it wasn't only Roman and Booker. It was other guys there making plays there as well. I know Alexander played some defense. Bucci was,
he made it.
I thought Bucci was
like I said, like I just alluded to, to me, it was a collective effort defensively. I like what they did, and I've seen Belvidere North play a few times this year. And every time I've seen them play, it's always a collective effort defensively. There's really not just one particular individual that's really standing out. Even though Roman is he's a formidable one on that defensive front. I don't know if you noticed, but in the last few weeks, they've been lining him up on that defensive line, and I think why Coach Fagan is doing that, to take advantage of Roman's quickness to be able to get into that backfield really quickly and become a disruptor for an offense.
Yeah, noticed that a few times there. It'll be interesting to see, kind of what they do with him this week against Harlem. But I did notice that a few times that they did line him up, and they blitzed him a lot more than I remember them blitzing him in the previous, I'd say 3 or 4 weeks. So that might be something that they're looking at doing. Again, maybe it's something they want to put on film, or maybe they're just trying to take advantage of, a player that they feel might not be as strong as other guys on the line. So I think moving forward, and that's something that, maybe Roman and those guys are looking at, that maybe that's a better opportunity for him to make plays, because he's such a good tackler. He flows to the football. He understands the game really well. Yeah. He's a smart guy, real smart football player.
Yeah. And again, he plays on both sides of the ball. Iron Man for sure. Because he makes plays on both sides of the ball. I mean, he spends a lot of time on offense, pretty much primarily on defense, pretty much each and every snap. Just the type of condition that young man has got himself in this year to really play at such a high clip as he's playing at right now. So, again, kudos again to Belvidere North, but as it relates to Roman, I think he's going to continue to, elevate his game. This week they got Harlem coming to town. So again, it's a big game for him, big game for Belvidere North and Harlem period. But, I think, that saying, big time players always rise in big time games. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can continue to keep his motor going against a really good Harlem offense next week.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Scott and Drew. They did a great piece on Eric Roman and Ben Booker for Overtime last week. I know it's on their YouTube channel. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, What a great story on those two young men. They're great men. They're great young men. They got great futures ahead of them, whatever they want to do. But they've been teammates and friends for a really long time. Great piece by Scott and Drew.
Right, for sure. We're going to go ahead and move on. We're going to get to our Bailey Pod top performers of the week. Bailey Pod top performers of the week. Here's the list as follows: Ben Booker, Belvidere North; Chris Porter, Guilford; LeBron McCullum, Harlem; Caleb Parker, Hononegah; Max Benson, Hononegah; Peter Azulaga, Auburn; Braxton Fawcett, Harlem; Mashine Busby, East; Drew Shockley, Hononegah; Nick Alvarez, Belvidere; and Grayson Weber of Guilford. Congratulations to those young men for making the Bailey Pod list in week 8. Congratulations again. Hope to see you guys next week on the list. Harold, just looking at my list, I mean, a lot of these guys have been on my list pretty consistently week in and week out. What did you think of my list tonight?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I like that we got the young man from Auburn. I thought he had a great week this week. Busby as well. I thought Busby is part, he's got a really nice future ahead of him. And Weber does what Weber does. I mean, he's just a really consistent, good football player. He continues to do things like that. And, Booker could be on this list until the cows come home. I mean, he's just he's just a phenomenal high school football player. Agreed. One of the best Nick 10 players of all time. I know I was talking with I'm going to say an old timer, as I was walking up and down the sidelines last week, and he's like, I don't know if I've ever seen a faster athlete at that size in this conference. And he hasn't been around there forever, but he is just a phenomenal athlete who, if he's going in a direction and he's got 6 inches on someone, he's gone. Right. There's no one going to catch him. Now, when he gets to Air Force, that's a whole different level of football. But for the Nick 10, that he is he's a tremendously fast and big athlete.
Absolutely. I agree. I think he's having a phenomenal career. Again, it's just good to see, some fresh names on the list, like you just alluded to. Peter Ezlagula from Auburn. He had a phenomenal game last week. I
didn't say his name because I don't want to make that mistake.
I think I'm pronouncing that right. Ezlagula. And also too, Marshine Busby from East. He had a really good game over there at East, and their disappointing loss to Guilford last week. But again, congratulations to those young men that made the Bailey Pod list, the first comers and the guys that just keep on making the list. So Harold, we're going to go ahead and continue to move through the show. We're going to bring in our next guest tonight. My main man, been knowing this young man for quite some time. Great guy, best in the business. Without further ado, Scott Leber. Scott, how you doing?
Hi, guys. I was still doing my homework, preparing for the show. Got to get in all that show prep down to the final seconds,
It's just like high school. All right.
We're here, man. We're here.
I think I studied more for this than in high school.
Scott, thanks for joining us tonight, man. Definitely means a lot for you to come on the Bailey Pod and just contribute. Scott, we just wrapped up our game of the week, which was our game of the week for the overtime for the show, which was Belvidere North in Harlem. And we just gave our quick takes. And, if you don't mind, give you a quick take. I know you were at the game, but what were some of your thoughts with both teams from the other night?
North and Hononegah. That was a very entertaining game. It was a great game. Tip my cap to Hononegah because they've been getting better week by week. They keep playing physical. There are no easy games against Hononegah. We saw that against Guilford as well a few weeks ago. And I think they've kind of taken on the identity of toughness and resiliency. And I think a lot of that comes from Drew Shockley, who is a really tough, hard-nosed kid. And his ability to run has made that team a whole lot better than they were at the start of the year when he was out. As far as Belvidere North goes, I just keep going back to that last drive they had where they scored the go-ahead and winning touchdown with 3:01 to go, I think it was. Every play on that drive, and that was a really long drive, every play was a running play, which is Belvidere North football. That's their identity. That's what they want to do. But every play, they were picking up 5, 6, 8 yards, and it was a different, sometimes it was Booker, sometimes it was Roman, sometimes it was McElroy, sometimes it was another kid. And then Bucci, the quarterback, finished it off. I mean, that is textbook Belvidere North football. And if you're going to beat Belvidere North, you've got to stop that run game. And you got to stop it up the middle first. And then you got to worry about Booker on the edges. But if you cannot stop their hard-nosed run game up the middle, you're going to struggle against Belvidere North. So I think that's the first key for Harlem in this game is, can they stop that run between the tackles? As for Harlem, I think you're still there, Tim, are you? As for Harlem,
I'm here. I'm here, buddy.
I think the Huskies are playing really well. I think both teams are playing really well, actually. North has from day one, but Harlem has too. But I think they're both playing really well, which is what you want to see right now. I think both teams are pretty healthy. The Huskies we all know about their explosive offense. In the last 3 games, they've scored 59 points, 49 points, and 49 points. Now, those were against 3 non-playoff teams. But still, when you can score that many points, and they did the bulk of that damage in the first half of each one of those games, that tells you how loaded this is. And I can't remember, I might have to go back to some of those great Boylan teams with Demery Croft and before that even, where I can remember an offense that could hurt you this badly with both the pass and the run game like the Harlem Huskies can. But if there is a defense in the Nick 10 that can contend with that balanced Harlem offense, it's Belvidere North with their experience and their great linebackers who can, especially Roman and Rooney, who can really laterally cover the field sideline to sideline. That's the defense that is equipped in the Nick 10 to handle Harlem's offense.
Yeah. I would agree with you, Scott. I mean, you look at Belvidere North's defense. I mean, they've just been solid all year. What they've been able to do, on defense. Like I was just alluded to earlier. I like how they flow to the ball. It's every down. It's all 11 hats flowing to the ball. They make big stops. In the run game, but also too, something that we don't really talk about each and every week with Belvidere North. How are they on the back half? What are their defensive backs like? And their defensive backs are really good, led by Williams. But they actually play the ball when the ball's in the air. They become receivers. So Coach Fagan and Coach Beck have to be sleeping well at night, knowing that they have a defense that can compete with anybody in the state.
Right. And I think the key, too, for Belvidere North, in addition to guarding the edges, not letting Booker pop the big ones, and defending the hard runs up the middle, is get some of that pressure on Fawcett. If you can make Fawcett release the ball just a split second sooner than he wants to get that ball out there to Jackson or McClellan, you're going to win the battle. If you can force him with pressure, Fawcett, to get rid of it just a split second sooner. So we'll see if the front of that Belvidere North defense can do that. But Fawcett's really good at getting that ball out of there quickly. He knows what he's doing. He knows where he wants to go, and he gets rid of it in a hurry.
Well, as Coach Morrow alluded to, in the last show that he was on, he said that, they kind of tweaked the offense to his skill set to where, he can get the ball out of his hand really quick. Because if you look back at the games of Harlem, Fawcett's got really decent arm talent. But his escapability skills aren't really there. I don't see, the crazy legs, so to speak. He can pick him up, lay him down. I just don't see that ability. He just doesn't possess that ability. So what they do is they rely on his arm and just ensuring that, he's getting that ball out in 2.5 or 1.5 seconds to where, he's throwing that quick hitch. He's throwing that quick slant, over the middle to Cook. But again, I think it's going to be a really good game. I think Belvidere North, again, what they were able to do last week, the big question is that, can they continue to play at this high clip that they're playing at right now?
Yeah, I certainly think so. I think both of these teams, I won't be surprised whoever wins this game because I think it's that close. And I know people don't like to hear that. They want, give us a clear-cut winner. There is not a clear-cut winner. Right. The team that makes the fewest mistakes is going to win this game most likely. But I think both teams are at the top of their game right now. I think both teams have tremendous weapons on both sides of the ball. You've got to be balanced. If you want to be a Nick 10 championship, you not only have to be, you have to have a good defense, and you have to have a good offense.
Yeah, you got to be well balanced.
Yeah, both of these teams bring that to the table. Strong defenses, strong offenses. I think they're both well coached. I think both teams have enough experience, especially Belvidere North, to handle this big game situation and will come out composed. Here's an interesting thing, guys. I was just looking at this. I'm like, how many games has Harlem played on grass this year? Because they're going to be playing on grass at North. And I'm looking at, they have not played a single game, Harlem, on grass all year. Because we only have 3 teams in the conference who still play on grass. Belvidere North and Boylan. And, the third school is escaping me right now. But anyway, we only have 3, and they have not played until now on any of those 3 schools with grass.
Right.
So – And Harlem's got the speed factor, so I think they're more of a turf team than a grass team. That doesn't mean they can't play on grass. But if you haven't played on grass at all this year, how much of an adjustment is that going to be for the Harlem kids Friday night?
Yeah. And I think, just looking at some film on Harlem, I think I don't think it really matters what surface they play on. I think, as long as they have the right proper cleats to be able to, the backs put their foot in the ground, cut back, come running downhill north and south. But hopefully the field at Belvidere North is not too muddy to where, the footing becomes an issue for either team, because both teams have really good running backs, that can bust home runs for 50 or 60. But, I don't think the actual surface is going to be an issue for Harlem.
Well, Harlem's good on any surface. Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like they can't play on grass. Far from it. I'm just saying it's pretty odd where you've gone up to week 9 of the season without playing a single game on grass. I think there's just a slight adjustment, maybe perhaps, for Harlem to get used to that for a quarter or so again. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure. The other thing is that Fawcett, I think the other thing is, Scott, you brought up Fawcett, and you trying to get to him and get him off his spot because he doesn't move around a lot. I think this will be the first game since really Guilford that he'll be in a situation to maybe feel some pressure going into the game. And you got to remember, he's only a sophomore. Yeah, he's had a terrific year. He has nearly 20 touchdowns and with just one interception. But during that time, he really hasn't been pressured at all during the year. This game is conceivably, you could say, a championship level game, right? So how is he going to react to that?
And guys, that's something I'm going to really be interested to see is that, we know what he's done, the young man Fawcett. We know what he's done these last 8 weeks. He's done some pretty impressive things as a sophomore, but you look at the teams that he's put up big stats on. He had over I think over 100 something plus yards passing against Boylan last week. We know Boylan's down. He threw for 3 TDs. I'm not knocking his talent. I think he's a talent, but what is he going to be like when he faces a much faster, much more physical, much more talented team as a Belvidere North? Are we going to see a sophomore? Or are we going to see a senior on Friday night? And I think that remains to be seen.
All I can do is go back to the Guilford game where Harlem played at Guilford, and he did not play like a sophomore in that game. They didn't win the game. Right. Guilford won it. It was a close game. But I didn't see a sophomore out there quarterback. He looked like he knew what he was doing. And he looked very composed, which is all you can ask for out of any quarterback.
You can ask for a sophomore. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, particularly a sophomore. I think he's.
It sure is nice that he had phenomenal things. He has Jackson Cook on the outside to throw the ball to as well. I mean, that's a nice guy to be able to get it to, especially as you guys mentioned before, those nice short crossing routes over the middle of the field. If you get it to him, he can take it all the way. And then,
and then he's got LeBron and McClellan on the other side, who had 2 long touchdown catches last week in their game last week. So I was talking to Coach Beck earlier in the week about Harlem's offense, and he's like, they pretty much have transformed their offense this year into a completely different offense than what it was last year, where they relied heavily on misdirection and Jamani Muhammad. And this year, it's almost a whole new offense. And I think you got to go back to the quarterback with that, because a lot of high school teams are limited by what their quarterback can do and can't do. Right. And with Fawcett, you can do a lot of different things that Harlem hasn't been able to do in recent years. They haven't had stellar quarterback play in recent years. Now they do. Now they got a whole new look, and it seems like all their kids on offense have grasped this offense really well. They do it well.
And I think that's why they have probably one of the better offenses in the actual conference, because of what they can do. They're not a one-dimensional program. They have Fawcett that can put the ball in the air. He's proven that these last 8 weeks. And then you have Foster and Broom on the ground, and doing what they do. And then you got Cook. You can actually line him up pretty much anywhere. So again, what they have talent-wise definitely speaks volumes, because again, they have playmakers at those key positions that I just actually alluded to.
I would like to be in a room with Josh Fagan, the defensive coordinator of Belvidere North, for a little bit for this one, but he's a little busy to do that with me right now. But Josh Fagan is the defensive coordinator for Belvidere North, and he's got to mastermind the defensive game plan, which I'm sure he did last weekend, for this game against Harlem. And how do you pick your poison? How do you stop Harlem? Because the run game, they can bust the big ones there with the running backs they have. And then with the passing game, they can hit big there. So Josh Fagan has his work cut out with him. I'm sure he's gone over everything too with Coach Beck and the rest of the staff. But I have a lot of respect for Josh Fagan, and I've known him, and I know you have, Tim, since he was putting on a Boylan Titan uniform back in the day. He does a great job as a defense coordinator. He did under Coach Apino at Boylan. He did under Coach Apino at Auburn. Josh is a good one. Belvidere North was very fortunate to scoop him up. So I think it's going to be – that's kind of a chess game I'm looking forward to seeing, is what does Josh Fagan and that Belvidere defense do against all those offensive options of Harlem in this game.
Right. Guys, we're going to go ahead and bring in our first guest tonight. Coach Beck is in the house. We're going to go ahead and bring him in. And a lot of the things that we're talking about right now, guys, he can shed a little bit more light on it than we can. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Coach Beck of Belvidere North. How you doing, Coach?
Good. You guys got me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. We got you. We got you, buddy. We got you.
I'm sitting here trying to get my mic to work for the last 10 minutes on my school laptop, and I guess I'm not as tech savvy as I thought I was.
You can work
Coach,
those headsets on the sideline, right, Coach? You can work those.
Yeah.
You might need
like
those
I said,
Friday.
I thought I had a pretty good understanding of things, but yeah, I've been sitting here messing around with it and couldn't get it to work. So,
Coach, thanks for joining us tonight. I know you're busy getting ready for the big game this week, but I want to talk a little bit about last week, big showdown with Hononegah. You know, I know you guys pulled that one out 27-24. Tight game, came down to the wire. You know, you guys were back and forth exchanging punches. You know, Coach, what are some of the things that you guys learned from this game as you guys prepare for Harlem this week? What did you guys take away from this Hononegah game last week? Did he get it?
Coach, that was for you. Can you hear Jim?
I don't. I think his. I think
you guys still got me, but
Yep.
I think he froze. Coach, we can hear you.
There you are.
All right.
There you are.
you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Jeez,
Did you get my question? You want me to repeat? It's okay.
No, yeah, I got you. I really think playing a late season game where you face some adversity, something. We told our kids afterwards, like, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of things we find on film that we could have done better tonight. I'm just happy with the way our kids responded to adversity. Hononegah came out with a really nice game plan and played really well. And talked to Coach Zimmerman afterwards and told him that I thought his team played really hard and I thought they executed really well. And, so just to have that in week 8, meaningful game, facing some adversity and just seeing how, a bunch of high school kids respond. So to have our kids respond the way they did and be able to come away with that one on the road. Hononegah is a tough place to play. Huge crowd, always have a really loud student section. So all those factors, I think, just prepare us for this week and then for the playoffs as well.
Coach, I got a question for you. Andrew Bucci scored the winning touchdown last week, and I know last week is last week, but I'm just curious because he's got that hard-nosed mentality of like a fullback or a middle linebacker or something, and here he is playing quarterback. At what point did he start in his youth playing quarterback, and what did you guys see in him that made you think, this kid can be a quarterback, he can be our quarterback? What was it about Andrew that made you come to that decision to play him there?
Well, as far back as I can remember, Andrew's been a quarterback. I remember watching him in, Thunder Youth playing quarterback. So Andrew's older brother, Joey, played for us for a couple years. And so he's been around our program since he was a little kid. And he's obviously, everyone could see, he's a tough kid. He's a wrestler. He doesn't back down from anybody. And he always thinks that he can get that yard. I mean, there was a couple times in that game Friday night where he just came to the sideline and said, "Coach, it's 4th down, I can get it." And I said, "Okay, then it's on you." And he went out there and he made the call, whether it was quarterback sneak or he got us in the best play. He's just that type of kid. He's got a lot of, he's a high character kid. He's one of our huddle group leaders. Trust him a lot, but he's just got that, kind of moxie about him. I know that's cliche to say, but, he wants the ball in his hands. Whether it's he's getting the ball or he's distributing it to someone else, he wants the ball in his hands in those crunch time situations. So I don't think you can ask for anything more, for your senior quarterback, for the leader of your team, to just say, "Put it on me, coach, and I'll get it done."
Before you joined us, I was talking with the other gentleman about your defensive coordinator, Josh Fagan, and what a great reputation he has. And take us through the process. When you're facing an offense like Harlem's, do you completely leave that part of the game plan up to Josh? Or how much of that do you go over with him? When does that start on Saturday or Sunday? Just take us through the process of working through the defensive schematics of how you're going to deal with a team like Harlem.
Yeah, we get together Sunday as a staff. We kind of, take Saturday to, finish up anything we need to from Friday night's game, get through the stats, anything like that, players of the week. And we're usually coming into Sunday morning with, a couple different ideas on in all phases of the game, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams, and just having watched our upcoming opponent and reflecting on how we did Friday night. We usually come in with some ideas, and we meet as a full staff, all lower level and varsity coaches, offense, defense. And we just kind of talk about how, again, last Friday went, our upcoming week, our upcoming opponent, and then, kind of any just general big picture things for the program. And then we usually split by offense and defense at that point. And then usually Coach Fagan is still kind of working on the game plan, even after their defensive staff meets through the rest of Sunday. Usually the time that him and I get to debrief is we share an office together now. He's teaching strength conditioning here at North. His chair is about 2 feet over here to my right. So we're usually in here Monday morning, just kind of going over each other's game plans and kind of, trying to poke holes in it and ask questions and, say, hey, I need some help here. What do you think about this? And, he's a great guy to bounce ideas off of. He's, seen a lot of football, and he's seen, high school football at the highest level. Collegiate player, obviously has an extensive coaching background and a lot of success, in his career. So he's a great one to bounce ideas off of. Even though he's worried about stopping an opponent offense, there's times that I'll ask him like, hey, how would you line up to this? How would you line up to this formation? And we're always on the whiteboard and just kind of kicking ideas around. But he does a really good job of, trying to get our kids to be in a position to be successful. And that's, we try to keep it simple. At the end of the day, these are high school kids. And for us, we have kids that play both ways. So we have to practice offense and defense, each day. So we don't get a full 2-hour practice on one side of the ball or the other. It's pretty much split right down the middle. So, he's trying to keep it simple for our kids and just get them in a position where they can play fast and, not have to think a ton and just get out there and, be physical and be fast. And I think he does a great job of that.
Yeah. Coach, being that Friday night's game is a big one, it reminds me of a lot of last year's regular season finale against Hononegah. Winner most likely going to be conference champion. Some things have to go right for Harlem to have that happen. Yeah. Have you guys talked about that as a collective coaching staff? And then have you talked about it during practice? And what changes or what are you talking to the kids about?
Yeah, I mean, our kids are it's a pretty veteran group. So, we've had a group of these seniors that have been with us since they were sophomores, probably about, I'd say 7 or 8 of these kids played most or all of the season with us on varsity when they were sophomores. So they've been in the quarterfinals with Lake Zurich. They've been in the quarterfinals with Cary Grove. So they've seen a lot of football. And we really don't have to talk a whole ton about, hey, this is what's riding on this game. The kids know. They're usually the ones like bringing it up to us. Like, we finished the game last week, and one of the kids, we didn't even leave the field over at Hononegah, and one of the kids is like, hey, isn't this the first time that North's been 8-0? And I kind of looked at him and I was like, yeah. I'm like, I'm pretty sure. So, they know. And the thing I like about our kids is like they're competitive no matter what. I mean, today in practice, like we're blowing quick whistles because we know how our kids get on Wednesdays when we're in full pads. And if we didn't blow the whistle quick enough, they would smack somebody face mask to face mask and run their feet and end up on the ground. And, they like to compete. So, as far as our kids know what's on the table, we've obviously talked about, North's never been 8-0. We're 8-0 now. We've never been 9-0, never been outright conference champions. So there's been a little talk about that, but really what it all comes down to, I mean, we've probably said this every week, is just about playing our best football. And we should be peaking at this point. If we're as good as we think we can be, we should be peaking right now, and we should be playing our best football. And that's, again, going back to Coach Fagan, that's something that he talked about weeks ago about just how the best teams in the state get better and better each week. And he's obviously seen those teams at the highest level. So to hear that from a coach that's been a part of some state championships, to say that this is what we need to do, we need to be getting better and better each week, no matter who the opponent is. I think our kids took that to heart.
Coach, you had. I'm going to go back to Hononegah. You had 336 on the ground rushing. I think Booker ended up with 130. You know, what success do you owe, to your offense too? I mean, you guys have been doing it week in and week out. Nothing but big plays. You don't have the biggest guys up front. You alluded to that first time you were on the show this year. How your offense, you're small up front, but the assignment wise, your guys are sound. They know what they're doing. And I witnessed that against Hononegah on Friday night. But what do you credit your offensive play to this year? Is it all 11 guys? Is it a group of guys? What is it that allows you guys to go out week in and week out and do what you do? And that's put numbers on the board and rack up these types of yards. Can you speak to that for me?
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows we have a pretty talented group of skill guys. Andrew Bucci running the show, getting the ball to Eric Roman, Ben Booker, Xavier McElroy, throwing the ball to Nathan Alexander. We got a really good group of skilled kids. We found out early in the season, we felt we really struggled. In the Guilford game, we felt we struggled. And we looked at our offensive line and we just were brutally honest with those guys about how they played. And heading into that game, we had, of those guys, our 5 starting linemen, and then we obviously consider our tight ends part of our offensive line. There was only one of those players that had significant varsity experience, and that's Seth Williamson, our center. So we were playing some guys who played a little bit in some spot minutes here and there last year, and then we're playing a couple of juniors who are on the sophomore team. So to watch, and I said this to Scott yesterday when he came and talked to me, just to watch that group grow up and mature and kind of gel together has just been really a joy to watch because, again, I think everyone knows about our skill guys, and some of those guys have been doing it on varsity now. Ben and Eric for 4 years, and another handful of them for 3 years. So, but just to watch this offensive line play as well as they did on Friday night over at Hononegah, with where we started, we felt like we left some points out on the field against Guilford, and our offensive line wasn't the only reason, but we needed to get cleaner and we needed to get sharper on the offensive line, and I think we've done that week by week.
Coach, emotions play a big part in games like this, which they should. I'm just curious, on any game day, throughout the day, you have other duties, obviously, at school, but what are your emotions like from, first period of the day right up to the last period of the day on a game day, especially a big game? Are you pretty calm and you kind of block out the game until the school day ends, or are you constantly in the back of your mind thinking about the game and all the scenarios and all the things you want to see happen? What do you like on game day?
Well, you probably have to ask someone else. Like, I think I'm probably pretty normal, but I'm sure if you asked, I don't know, my wife or, any of the kids, they'd probably be like, don't talk to them on a game day. I like to think I'm normal, but, me and Coach Fagan teach our strength conditioning classes. So we see pretty much all of our kids throughout the day, and it's hard not to talk about the game. It's hard not to, just kind of talk about different scenarios and things we want to do, in the game and things like that. So, I try to not worry, because at that point, the hay's in the barn. We've had 4 days of practice at that point. We're not changing anything that we have in the game plan at that point. So, really, it's just more just anxiousness, just getting through the day and then, waiting for 7 o'clock to hit and waiting for that kickoff.
Coach, what are some of the things that, I know you've probably been watching film on Harlem for probably a couple of weeks now, but what are some of the things that you see that Harlem does that make you just say, wow, they're good? what stands out in terms of their, like, looking at their offensive schematics, what sticks out to you the most that Harlem could actually, what they do well? Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they do a lot of things well. They're not 7-1 by accident. They got a heck of a quarterback, young kid, but definitely plays. Reminds me a lot of the kid from Guilford. Just plays, like he's a senior. He's only a sophomore, and obviously he's got a lot of athletes around him that he can spread the ball to. Great size up front. That's a typical Harlem team with big offensive and defensive linemen that are physical kids, play well with their hands, and they like to finish blocks. They like to put kids down on the ground. Defensively, they get off of blocks well. They have great team defensive speed. They get a lot of hats to the ball. So, there's a lot of things that I think you turn on the film in any one of their weeks, and you kind of just go, "Whoa!" That kid can go, or that group of kids, can really go. So, and like I said, at this point we have films from every week with our league pool. So, you kind of, like I said, you could pop on any game and see any number of kids out there making plays for him.
Coach, what are some things have you voiced to your kids this week as you guys had entered practice on Monday? What are some of the things from Sunday till now that you've said to your kids to actually motivate them and to prepare them mentally for this game coming up against Harlem on Friday night?
Yeah, like I said, we don't have to say a lot. We've kind of changed our format of practice this year, and Mondays for us we're more about getting out on the field and getting through our game plan for our upcoming opponent. So we used to have a team meeting, and in the team meetings, we would kind of go over a lot from the previous week, and we'd talk about our upcoming opponent, and we've just kind of shortened that down. I mean, these are high school kids that sit in a classroom all day. So we just thought, like, hey, that team meeting could be shortened down and that time could be better used out on the practice field. So, for us, we call it our form room, where we have, the stadium seating, the big screen. We were in the form room for, probably about 20-25 minutes on Monday, just kind of recapping from Friday night and then kind of introducing our game plan. And then it was go get your helmet and shoulder pads on. We're getting out to the practice field and we're getting some practice in. So that's kind of our format. So as far as, like, again, we talked a little bit about the game, the things that are riding on it, but it's not really a thing that we're like every day, this is for the conference championship. Like, our kids just know it, and like I said, the way they practice, I know that they're prepared to play. I know that they're confident in our game plan, in us as coaches and each other as teammates. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to equate to a win on Friday night. But the way, our kids practice today, and I'm about to, when we get done here, go over our practice film, because I went out and got dinner with my family, and that's why I'm still at school. I just came back to school to upload the drone footage from practice. That's going on the laptop right over there. And then,
full-time job.
Yeah. But just watching the practice live today, we were really happy walking off the field about how our kids executed and how our kids, put into practice everything that we've been kind of harping on this week as far as our game plan. So, again, I think with maybe a less experienced group, we may have to kind of pump them up a little bit, but with this group, they kind of just do it on their own, and they're always competitive, and they're always, even in drills where we were running routes today, not even throwing a ball, just running route combinations at our defensive backs, and making sure they were, reading keys and making sure they're in the right spot. And they still were, like, competing and grabbing and, fighting. And there was no ball even being thrown. And I was standing there watching Coach Fagan's running the drill, and I was standing there watching, and he's yelling, "No ball, no ball." But these guys are still, like, grabbing arms and hooking and grabbing jerseys. So, and that's just how our kids practice. And, I love this group of kids. It's led by our seniors, and, it's a fun group to be around.
Coach, can you talk a little bit about the excitement that's going to be at Milt Brown Stadium on Friday night with an opportunity to go 9-0? When you took the job and you built the program to where it is now, is this one of those times that you can take it in a little bit on, like, we have built a monster here, and Friday night we have the opportunity to start our journey for where we want to go, which is down to state? Can you guys, as a coaching staff, and you as the head coach, can you take that in and kind of what you're feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thankful every day for the opportunity to be the head football coach at Belvidere North. So whether it's going out to practice or standing out there for the national anthem before kickoff on a Friday night. So yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch our kids play and kind of sit back. And I really enjoy, like, during the sophomore games, because I'm not actually coaching, just standing there in the end zone and watching our lower level kids play and watch them use the techniques that we coach and communicate the things that we stress for them to communicate. That's a lot of fun. And when you see kids do things the right way and be successful, that's why you get into coaching, and you see the excitement of those kids when they do something the right way. And you look at them and you know that you put the time and effort into them. They learned the right way to do it. They went out and executed it in some pretty intense circumstances. Sometimes on Friday nights, like last Friday, watching our kids run off the field after that last score, and the excitement and the smiles on their faces, because we executed really well on that last drive and got it into the end zone for the winning score. It was just great to see. It's why you get into coaching. And I just worry about, are we doing the right things every day as a coach to put these kids in a position to be successful? So I don't really think a ton about, here's where we're at, and this has never been done before. I just think of, here's how we have to prepare for today's practice. I mean, like I said, probably the most thinking I do about our program is standing there watching the sophomores play before a varsity game. And, because like I said, I'm not involved in any play calling. I just get to kind of hang out in the end zone and by our varsity kids and watch and enjoy the sophomore game. So that's a lot of fun for me.
Coach, before we let you go, I got one question just been weighing on me. I've followed you guys quite a bit this year. Been able to cover a few games in Belvidere North, and I noticed something when you guys bust big plays. I noticed a coach running about a 4.25 40 down the sideline. I mean, have you ever tweaked a hamstring or a calf? I'm seeing Booker bust. It's like you're trying to chase Booker. I mean, can you talk to me a little bit about, that thing that you do when your guys bust big plays, because you're the only coach on your sideline that does that?
Well, yeah, I know I'm nowhere near Ben, because we just did miles per hour today in class, and he's near 21 miles per hour. And when the gym emptied today, I ran the miles per hour test just to see where I was. And I'm not going to tell you the number because it's embarrassing, but I'm nowhere near Ben. I usually have a head start on him. But like I said, that excitement when you see, a play go off really well, and you see, you get the block and you get that perfect alley, and then a kid like Ben, or Eric hits it and just goes. It's just that level of excitement, that as a coach, like I said, I think we work really hard as coaches, to put our kids in a position to be successful. And then when it works, I'm not the one out there running the ball, but I can at least run down the sideline with them and, be fired up and move as quickly as I can for 44 years old. So
you look good, man. You look good.
I haven't pulled anything yet, so that's encouraging. So
well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Well, hey, Coach, we want to thank you, man, for spending some time with us here on the Bailey Pod tonight. Definitely means a lot to all of us. Just want to say good luck this weekend, man. Good luck the rest of the way. And again, we're always rooting for you. Coach Beck, everybody, Belvidere North. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for all your support and just your coverage of high school high school football in this area. It's awesome.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. Yeah, Coach Beck. Coach Beck's always a treat to talk to, guys. I think.
I never realized Coach is sprinting down the sidelines with Ben Booker.
Yeah.
Now I'm torn. Do I shoot Booker or do I shoot Coach during the game?
Hey, Scott, you should see it, man. I saw it 2 years ago.
I've never seen it because I'm always watching Booker.
And I saw it 2 years ago, and I'm like, who is this guy? And I saw it last year, and I'm like, that's Coach Beck. I mean, Coach Beck's got some wheels, man. He's actually running down that sideline, and I'm like, it's every time. I mean, you see it every week because every week they've been doing what? Hitting big plays, 50 or 60. So you may or may not see it this week. Remains to be seen. Guys, we're going to go ahead and continue to move through the show. Our next coach is waiting on us. He's got his team on a 3-game win streak. They're now sitting at 7-1, waiting on the big showdown this Friday as they travel over to Belvidere North. Without further ado, guys, I'm going to go ahead and bring our next guest in, Coach Jim Morrow from Harlem. Coach, how you doing?
Hey, good to see all you guys. Thank you.
Good to see you, Coach.
Good to see you as well, Coach. Coach, I just want to get right to it. I want to say congratulations on the 3-game win streak that you guys are on right now and the great record that you guys are off to at 7-1. I believe since you've been back there at Harlem, I think I pulled this up the other day. Bear with me here. I believe you are, since you've been back at Harlem, I believe you're 14. Oh, here we go. You're 14-3 in the Nick 10 since you're returning to Harlem. Is this something that you saw when you actually signed back up for the job again over at Harlem?
When I signed back up, I wasn't thinking so much about wins and losses, but just getting the culture right and surrounding myself with good people. We had to hire a brand new staff. So there's not that many available coaches. So that was just a big chore. But I know like if we had good people and a good culture, winning kind of comes from something like that. So I just try to put those items in place, and over time we've won the kids over. And this year, we kind of hit the ground running from where we left off last year.
Sure. Coach, again, you guys are coming off a big win against Boylan last weekend. You guys put up, I believe, 49 points against the Titans. You had a good defensive outing as well. I think you held Boylan like 6 or 7 points, if I'm not mistaken. Coach, looking back over the last few weeks, how much have you guys grown since that Guilford game to where you guys are now?
We've improved. We've grown. I think we're a better football team than we were at that moment. We saw a couple of things that were just big mistakes that we've definitely paid attention to and cleaned up. They found a schematic error that needed to be corrected right away, and we've done that. I think we're playing, at a little bit higher level for sure. We're not missing assignments. We're not missing blocks. Our kids kind of understand where the breakdowns occurred and went to work, and I think we've shored them up, and I like where we are right now.
Coach, speaking of improvement and growth through over the year, we talked about the last time you were on about your sophomore quarterback, Braxton. Coming into the season, you didn't know who was going to be your quarterback. He stepped in and he's grown. Where have you seen the biggest growth in his game from the beginning of the year until now?
He's played so consistently. Like, for me to say he's grown, I mean, he's throwing 1 interception all season, and I'll take the blame for it because, he made the right throw. It's they ended up moving Freeport ended up moving a faster defensive back while cadence was going on. Can kind of jump the route, but he threw it where he was supposed to. But I blame the play caller, me not calling the timeout when I kind of saw what was going on. But he's played extremely well. The growth, I just think he's more cerebral than I really thought he would be as a sophomore. Like, he really does understand. We require our kids to take notes in the meetings, and he is very diligent, asking all the right questions, getting clarification, understanding, okay, who am I looking at, in this particular, in this particular defensive look for this particular play this week. And, he'll bounce some things off of me, and coach, I'm having trouble getting my shoulder turned because that route's coming open too early. So let's go make an adjustment. So he helps me be a better coach by alerting me to certain things and being such a great communicator. And I think, just getting to know him and working with him, because I didn't really get a chance to work with him at all last year. We just kind of grown, and my quarterbacks coach, Dave Hauger, deserves a lot of credit too for bringing him along. And it's just a real nice relationship that we communicate and bounce things off of. And I like this, I don't like that for these reasons. And we tweak it from there and help put him in a great position to be successful Friday.
Once it became apparent this year that Fawcett was going to be your starting quarterback, how much did you kind of readjust, remold your offense to capitalize on his skill set? Did you really transform your offense a bunch once you reached that decision, he's our guy?
The offense was kind of in place while we were trying to make that decision. It was just a matter of who was going to execute it at the highest level. What we were really debating on is whether we would have our senior who was the backup last year, Finn Stovall, back, or if he would decide to pursue his baseball ambitions. And he started the season pursuing his baseball ambitions, which kind of left Braxton with the opportunity. But really, with Finn kind of stepping out to do that, it was his opportunity, and to get that position. He still was competing with Christian Serrano, who's a year older than him. But it was a great competition. I think it made everybody better, and we're lucky that Finn has decided to come out later now and plays tight end for us as he did last year. That's a nice piece to have as well. And I don't think, it worked out pretty well. I think Finn would have been very successful in this system too, being the quarterback. But, I'm happy to have all these guys right now contributing in the ways that they are.
Sure, defense
Coach,
gets hope. Go ahead, Tim.
Go ahead.
Coach,
I was just going to ask. I was going to ask you, Coach Morrow, you've seen some film on Belvidere North probably for like the last 3 or 4 weeks. What are some of the things that jump out to you that you say to yourself, wow, they do this very well?
Well, they're just very well coached. They have a very unique defensive system that, it takes a while to kind of figure out, the different players that are packaged together and the coverages that they run. And it's very neat. It fits their athletes extremely well, and they've got good ones over there. So, I'm very impressed with the job that Coach Fagan and Coach Beck are doing and continue to do. It's problematic. I'll say that it definitely makes us rethink the things that we've been kind of doing for the last 8 weeks. And there's been a lot of tweaking. There's still some tweaking to do after tonight. Just seeing some things against certain shades that they like to play. And, we don't want to put ourselves in a bad play. Good plays are great, and dialing those up are a lot of fun. But, what can be catastrophic is kind of dialing up a bad play where you didn't really count on, this guy not being able to block back on a certain player here or there, and, creating a turnover and stuff like that. So kind of, got to think about protecting the ball a little bit in our schematic, as well as, how we're going to just, be able to attack them and move the ball and score points. But, they've got great athletes, and they're running around, and, every one of their guys can play. So it's going to be a pretty good matchup, a very entertaining game to watch.
Jim, I got a couple questions about your defense, which I think maybe gets overlooked a little by your offense because of what your offense is doing. But I'm pretty excited about a couple of your defensive linemen who are underclassmen, who I think are juniors, Noah Crandall and Jashavian Foy. I think they're both juniors. And every time I watch you guys play, I see those two kids making big plays and big tackles on the defensive front. Talk a little bit about your excitement for their progress that they've made on the defensive line and what they could be doing even in the future.
Very excited. We're getting a lot out of our seniors right now, like Isaiah Dozie Coleman, and Jaden Romero, who, he just kind of gets to the pile, somehow he gets his way to the football. He finds his way there. And then, Noah Crandall, who, primarily played guard for us last year. He was eager to play defensive end, but he played guard out of our necessity for him to do it. And this year he's gotten his opportunity, and he's done a great job with it. He's going to be, a beast to contend with moving forward. But Jashavian Foy is, being a junior on this team as well, stepped up nicely. We didn't really know who was going to play that anchor in the inside, that piece that kind of holds down, that nose guard and the two A gaps on each side. But he's really worked hard in the weight room, and he's done a nice job with his technique. And I got to credit to one of the assistant coaches that I got to come back and coach from my first 10 years, Scott Scholl, who just does a great job with the defensive linemen, and they're responding very well. And, hopefully we can, hold it down and kind of take away Belvidere North's midline and all the stuff they do between the tackles with the belly and the inside veer. And it's a lot. So, they've got their hands full this week.
I also have a Jackson Cook question for you. He was sensational last year as a sophomore. He had 8 picks. I think he returned 3 of them for touchdowns. So do teams at the high school level, when they're facing a DB like that, do they, like NFL teams and major college teams, do they try to avoid going to his side of the field when they throw the ball? Or is that just too sophisticated of thinking for most high school offenses and quarterbacks to avoid Jackson Cook? Have you seen any of that this year?
Well, I think Jackson went quite a few games before he got an interception. So I do think that to be the case, after having like 8 the year before. But sometimes, when you got LeBron McClellan on the other side, you got to kind of pick your poison. And if you need to throw the ball, you're going to try to do it as safely as you can. But he's a phenomenal talent, and anytime he can touch the ball, that's a good thing for us. And so, I hope teams decide that they want to punt to him, kick off to him, and all the other things too. So that would be nice if they did, if they're listening right now. But when he has his hands on the ball, look out. He took one to the house against East, 109 yards. Took another one just last week against Boylan, pick 6. So, I don't know, maybe teams have kind of forgotten about him a little bit. I doubt it, but if he can get to the ball, that's great. And because it's probably going to end up in the end zone.
Coach, are these the type of games that are coming up Friday night as you guys travel to Belvidere North? Are these the type of games that you enjoy coaching? I mean, I know, sometimes you can be in a conference and you may have some teams at the bottom that you really can't get up for, but how is it really getting up for such a astounding program such as Belvidere North? Can you talk to me a little bit about that? How are you as a coach right now? In as it relates to how you get up personally, how you get up and how you prepare for these types of opponents.
I don't have trouble getting up like that. The joy for coaching in me is more so the preparation. I like the day-to-day grind and getting the most, out of that 2-hour window of practice that you can get, making it as structured as can be. And my greatest satisfaction comes from us, all the teaching that's going on, as I look around and I can kind of see my coaches at work and not having, anybody off task. And those are the kind of challenges that I really tremendously like. I think, when the game comes around, it's more of me just trying to keep my anxiety in control, and so that I can be clear-headed, make adjustments, make solid calls, and put my guys in position. I'm trying to just always constantly just keep the emotions in check. I don't know. I've had issues with anxiety, so that's basically what I'm concerned about, just so I can be clear-headed, not make emotional rash kind of decisions that are going to put my guys in a bad spot. So everything is, strategic and calculating. That's the approach I take. That's the approach that I encourage my coaches to take. Kind of take the emotion out of it. The players will play with that. Let's coach cool-headed and put them in good position.
Coach, what would this mean to you? Not just to you, but to the Harlem community. What would it mean to the Harlem community to go over to such a volatile, hostile environment such as Belvidere North Stadium and be able to come out with a victory? What would that mean to the actual community of Harlem?
It would mean a ton. There's a lot of people that just absolutely, bleed orange and black, and support all our programs at Harlem High School. They went to school here. They sent their kids to school here. It's a really dedicated, solid fan base. And, we haven't had a ton of success in football, in all those years. So for us to win games like that, it's pretty special for them, pretty special for us. They let us know. I mean, they always very much, let us know their appreciation, and in times of where we can step up and put ourselves in positions and play games like this and come out on top. So, I hope we can give that to them again.
Coach, you mentioned a little bit earlier about when you retook the role at Harlem High School of changing the culture or getting it back to where it once was. Can you talk a little bit about the senior group that kind of helped you do that? Obviously, they were coming into their junior year at that point. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what they've done and how they've kind of pushed the program forward with the idea of what you want your culture to be?
Yeah, well, the last thing we say to each other when we break from a practice or a game is, I'll say the words day by day, and they echo brick by brick. And, we kind of feel like, it's really their part to take those bricks and put them in place, those pieces that will build this program. We always talk about like arrow up, make sure our arrow is always up, meaning you're doing the right things in the community, in the classroom, on the field. And I think they're very attentive to that. And, in their performance, we talk about, hey, everybody's arrow was up. You didn't play down to the competition this week. We did this well, did this well. So we're always constantly giving them feedback, and always kind of making sure that they're reflecting too, as far as, hey, what are 2 things I can really focus on this week to get better? If you want to communicate those 2 items with your coaches so that we can push you, and help you in that regard, that'd be a great thing. So, this just being coachable is so important, and I think you find that in a lot of good programs, as the kids are coachable. They love football. They want to be good. They want to be coached. And we've got a lot of those guys right now, and it's a lot of fun. So let's see what we can do with it.
Well, Coach, hey, we want to thank you, man, for stopping by the Bailey Pod tonight. Definitely means a lot to all of us. Good luck this Friday. Good luck the rest of the way. I love what you're doing over there at Harlem. Glad to see you back for your year 2 back over there at Harlem. Other than that, guys, any closing remarks for Coach before we get out of here?
I'm good. Thanks, Coach. Good luck. You want to tell me what the first play is so I know what to shoot Friday night?
I'm not going to reveal that. I might not even know. In fact,
I'll try to be ready for everything.
Go ahead and
right.
communicate that to Scott on Friday.
All right. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, Coach. All right,
Be
thanks
well,
a lot.
Coach.
Bye.
Yeah, guys. Again, another great show. Coach Morrow's a really good, really great coach. I like what he's doing over there at Harlem. It's really good to see him back, getting that Harlem spirit back, so to speak, over there at Harlem. Because again, I know when they, his the coach that was there previous to him, some things went on, and a lot of parents were upset. But it's good to see Coach Morrow back and really instilling, that Husky culture over there when he was there, for the 10 years that he was the head coach. So he's had a lot of success, the places that he's gone to, but it's definitely good to see him back over there at Harlem.
Yeah, he talked about.
Oh, go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say, he talked about his kids being coachable, and I think that goes both ways. Where you have coaches who you want to play for, who know how to have a relationship with kids, who know how to bring out the most in them. And I'm sure there are a few Harlem people out there going, "Hey, yeah, but he's never won a Nick 10 championship, Coach Morrow here at Harlem. We've had some really good kids." I'm sure there are some people like that, but on the other hand, I think Coach Morrow is the kind of mentor, and he talked about teaching kids, how much he enjoys that. I think he's the kind of mentor who is really good for young people, for teenagers.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's a two-way street there. You want coachable kids, and you want coaches who are good with kids, and he's good with kids.
Yeah. He's surrounding himself with some really, great coaches over there as well. He's got a really great staff, a mature staff. Some guys that know football, and I think we always give the credit to the head coach, but I think any great head coach will tell you that he's only as good as his assistant. So I think that's one of Harlem's strengths too. Is he's Belvidere North as well. They all have great assistant coaches. Yeah, you have a great head coach, but you got some great assistants, which you see why these two teams that are going to go head to head on Friday, why their record is where it is today.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet that if you talk to any of these players or previous players that have played under either Coach Morrow or Coach Beck, it's more than just the coaching of the X and O's. It's about communication. It's about they know that coach loves them, supports them, and will be there for them long past their playing days. And we're very lucky, Tim, me and you and Scott, you get to work with all the coaches in the Nick 10 as well. We are very lucky to have this group of men in this conference. They all are great men of morals, ethics. They work hard. They teach the kids. They treat them right, and they teach a game of football. So we're all very lucky that coaches like that are in the Nick 10.
Yeah. And again, just to close out on Coach Morrow, but he runs a no nonsense program. That's one thing I like about him. I think he runs a no nonsense program. He knows what he wants. He's a goal setter. Very cerebral, and understands the game, and understands what it takes to actually win. And I think that's why, they're in the position that they're in right now, sitting at 7-1, and could be, actually, shake up the entire Nick 10 and be a three-way tie. So again, he's had a successful career. He's having a great year this year. It's going to be interesting to see what they do, after this week when they go into the playoffs. All of our Nick 10 teams that make the playoffs, it's going to be interesting to see what they do, particularly Harlem and Belvidere North, because again, they're sitting at the top, and we always, I have our eyes set on the top 2, top 3 teams here in our conference.
Yeah. It's been a fun year in the Nick 10. That's all I can say. I've seen a lot of really good games this year involving those top 4 teams. But Jefferson's been a fascinating story, as well as they try to get into the playoffs. And even the teams who are down toward the bottom of the conference have some really good players, like Ezeagulu of Auburn you were talking about. And Gavin Sanders at Auburn's having a great year. He's got a chance to break a record this week for total offense in a single season. So Freeport's got some fun kids on their team. So as a person who covers the conference, could not ask for more. And I'm hoping we just get the terrific exclamation point on the end Friday night with this Harlem Belvidere North game.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to it. Guys, before we close, real quick, what are some of the keys for the Huskies' victory on Friday night? What are some of the keys, real quick? Scott, I'll start with you.
I think, as I mentioned earlier, on defense, they have to stop Belvidere North's run game up the middle. It all starts there with stopping Belvidere North because Coach Beck every year tells me during our preview of their season, they just want to keep the chains moving. They want those long, sustained drives, keep the chains moving, wear down your opponent's defense a little bit by hitting them hard with that strong power running game. And then also in this game, if they can win the clock possession time, they're also keeping Fawcett off the field and Foster off the field and Broom off the field and McClellan and Cook, at least the offensive McClellan and Cook off the field. So Belvidere North can just run that ball between the tackles with a little on the edge here and there and just keep moving the chains 3 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards. Harlem's got to stop that first or Belvidere North's probably going to win the game. On the flip side, I don't think, because Belvidere North doesn't throw the ball a lot, but they can. But because they don't throw the ball a lot, I don't think North, it's certainly not in their best interest to fall behind by 2 touchdowns or more and try to play catch up, because then the 5, 6, 7 yard chunks, you're going to be at a disadvantage with the clock trying to get back into the lead. But I think for Harlem, it all starts with stopping the run game up the middle. And the coach was just talking about Coach Morrow about his defensive line. They've done a great job. They got to do it again on Friday.
Yeah. Harold?
Yeah, Scott fully agreed with that. I think a big key for the Huskies to get a victory is they need some tackles for losses. On the season, they have nearly 30 as a team. Their 2 linebackers have combined for about 150 tackles and 12 and a half tackles for loss. Crandall, who they've talked about, he's got 12 and a half himself. So if they can get some negative plays there to put North behind the down and distance, I think that's a big thing. North is not going to turn the ball over. They haven't in the last 3 years really turned over the ball very much. So I wouldn't expect that to be a key for them to win the game. If they could get a couple of those, that's going to help them shorten the game and lessen their possessions. But I think just getting them behind the down and distance is a big thing. Now, can they do it? I don't know. North, they're really good up the middle. Their 2 guards, their center, and their quarterback, they're very good. And Bucci doesn't get enough credit for the way he handles the football, and he hides it from the backers and the secondary guys, so you can't tell who has the ball when, and then by the time you do, they're on the edges. I mean, that's a big thing. So then it's one on 2 or 3, for the defender. He has to pick.
Yeah. I guys, I think, my estimation, I just think Harlem just really needs to, play the game of their life defensively. I think they're going to be tested more up front than they are on the back end of the secondary. Scott, as you just kind of alluded to earlier, Belvidere North's not a passing team, but I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled some tricks out of their bag and tried to air it out a little bit, just to keep that Huskies defense honest, so to speak. But I just think the defense is going to have to play. I think all 11 guys are going to have to, play like men on a mission, so to speak, like it's their last game. Because again, you look at Belvidere North's running game and what they've been able to do, just pulverizing teams week in and week out, big runs after big runs, big runs after big runs. Belvidere North, Harlem's going to have to actually force Belvidere North to punt a lot on Friday night if they want to stay in this game.
Well, you got a lot of playmakers out there Friday, so you could Team A could execute really well for 90% of the plays, but on the other 10, somebody's busting some big ones, and there's the game. That was the case last week at Hononegah. Booker had the 2 long TDs. Otherwise, Hononegah played them very well throughout the game. But if you got playmakers who can pop that big one, that can erase or really tip the scales just like that in one big play. And both these teams had that ability Friday.
Guys, before we wrap up, just give me a 1 or 2 hitter here. What are the keys to Belvidere North victory? Just Belvidere North keys.
Continue to do what they've done. Continue to do what they've done for the last couple of years, and especially this year. Run the football, get it out to Booker when they need the longer run, but allow Roman to beat up the middle of that Husky defense. If he can beat up the middle of the defense, then everyone is going to look inside, and then by the time they know what's going on, they're going to have the broken play to the outside. Bucci's probably going to have a nice game running the football. They're not going to throw it a lot. If they throw it more than 6 or 7 times this game, I'd be shocked. Last week, they threw it 2 times total in the game. So that's the key to them. Just do what they have done all season long. Defensively, what they need to do, keep all the playmakers in front of you. Allow them to catch the ball, but make it what the first guy to the ball tackles the ball carrier. Don't allow a broken tackle to turn from a 10-yard play to a 20 and 30-yard play or a 50-yard touchdown. That's what they do. And I think they really are a good tackling secondary. I think that's the best part of that secondary is the way they tackle the football. So,
sure, Scott,
that's what they need to
I
do.
just agree with all that. Belvidere North's got to stay with their game, stay with what they do best, run the football, look for those opportunities where they can hit the edges, whether it's with Booker or they might do, a roll out, a pitch to a Booker or a Roman, and then you might see a halfback pass of some sort. They'll throw those things in there now and then.
Right.
And I think defensively, I totally agree that defensively, especially the secondary of Belvidere North, just has to keep those receivers in front of them, not let them get behind them for the deep play. Whether or not Fawcett has enough time to throw deep, we will see in this game, because he didn't have a lot of that against Guilford, where Guilford was putting pressure on him, and he didn't get to throw deep very much in that game.
Right.
So, and again, I mentioned this earlier too. I just think Belvidere North has to get some kind of a rush, not necessarily sacks, although that's what you want, but just get some pressure on Fawcett to make him get rid of the football just that hair second sooner than he really wants to get rid of the football.
Yeah. And I'm in agreement with both you guys. I just think that, Belvidere North just needs to do what they've been doing, but do it better. I mean, we've seen what they've done week in and week out. They're not 8-0 for just because they're Belvidere North. They're 8-0 because they're a damn good football team. So, do what they do, but do it better. On offense, don't try to do anything too cute. Just execute. Don't turn the ball over. Everybody's accountable. On that field on Friday night on that Belvidere North's offense. As it pertains to defense, I just think defense. I think they're really going to have to really step up their game in the secondary. I think that front three, what they do is getting pressure on the quarterback, as you saw that this past week against Hononegah. Shockley was under a lot of duress, so I'm not too concerned about what their front four will possibly be able to get pressure on Fawcett. But I think what they're going to have to do in the secondary. I think they're going to have to buckle up their chin straps. Play the ball when the ball's in the air, no blown assignments. And I think if they do that, it's a home game for them too. So they do have home field advantage. That doesn't mean a lot, but I just wanted to throw that out there. But I just think if they can come to play, but again, play a 5 or 6 notches above where they've been playing all year, I think we're going to see a really good game on Friday night. And I'm excited, guys.
Bring your popcorn, Tim.
Bring your popcorn. You know what? It's here already, Scotty. It's here already. It's here already. Early celebration, my man.
You're going to need a lot more popcorn in that bowl.
Early celebration for sure.
Butter and salt,
Scott,
please.
I want to say thanks, Scott, for joining us tonight, man, on this show. Definitely means a lot to me. I'm sure it means a lot to Harold as well to have an anchor of your caliber. Sitting here with
a Hall of Famer, nonetheless.
Yeah, a Hall of Famer. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
so
it's actually like a distinguished service award, which means to me, I'm an old guy now. I've been around because, you don't call young people distinguished. So I guess that means I'm officially old now. But I just want to tell everybody it's going to be a great game. If you can't be there Friday, Tim and we're going to have highlights on overtime on Fox 39. And Tim's going to tell us what went right and what went wrong and all that fun stuff. So tune in to overtime Friday night.
And then we're going to be back on the pod next week. Harold and I will be breaking down this game. So again, hey guys, tune in. But you two guys here again, I want to thank you guys again, man, for joining me. Harold, you're always a great contributor here on the Bailey Pod. I appreciate you, man. Keep coming, keep bringing good stuff. We'll continue to serve things up, man, for the people. So Harold Bone, Rockton Roscoe News, and Scott Leber of WTVO Sports. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, folks, there you have another great show in the books. Great game coming up Friday night. The showdown. Belvidere North, 8-0. Harlem, 7-1. Folks, if you're going in the game, get there early. And always, too, don't forget your popcorn. Have a good night, everybody. Appreciate you for joining the Bailey Pod.